Agnolo Bronzino, simply known today as Bronzino, stands as one of the clearest voices of Italian Mannerism, a painter whose surfaces gleam like enamel and whose portraits coolly measure power and elegance. In his hands, a noble face becomes a mask of refinement, a silk sleeve, a declaration of rank, and myth becomes an enigmatic puzzle. He was the court painter of the Medici, shaping how power looked in 16th century Florence, while also producing allegories that still baffle viewers and religious pictures of crystalline calm. Expect to meet rulers posed like statues, ladies whose hands quietly insist on their status, children as living jewels, and a mythological canvas that has inspired jokes, scandal, and scholarly debate in equal measure. This is a story of technique and theater, of a highly controlled aesthetic that transformed portraiture and court identity, and of an artist whose apparent coolness hides surprising layers of meaning. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating more educational videos like this one. Bronzino was born Agnolo di Cosimo in Florence around 1503 and apprenticed with Pontormo, a restless genius whose expressive distortions left a lasting mark. Under Pontormo, he learned to bend the body and stretch emotion in service of composition. He learned, too, how to polish paint until it took on that distinct, cool sheen later critics would call almost metallic. His earliest surviving works are religious in theme, altarpieces and devotional pictures, which reveal a young artist wrestling with color, line, and spiritual expression. Yet almost from the start, there is a second track to his career: portraiture. In Florence's competitive visual culture, the ability to render fabrics, jewels, and the exact tilt of a head made Bronzino indispensable to patrons who wanted an image as carefully constructed as their reputations. Bronzino's style is often described as Mannerist, but that label can be misleading if it only implies distortion. His Mannerism operates through refinement and control. Elongated limbs are not wild contortions, but carefully composed lines. Color choices are unusual, favoring pearly grays, cool blues, and acid greens that set off luxurious textiles. And his surfaces are polished to an almost enamel finish. He achieved this through disciplined layering, minute brushwork, and a sophisticated understanding of light that gives skin an alabaster glow. Look at how every edge is defined and how drapery reads like architecture. Details: a hand resting on a brocade, the glint of a pearl, the seamless transition from sleeve to wrist, are not afterthoughts but the grammar of his portraits and narrative paintings. No subject made Bronzino's reputation more than portraiture, and no patrons were more decisive than the Medici. Cosimo first chose Bronzino to craft the visual language of his court: armor and regalia that announce authority, faces that express composure rather than intimacy. Bronzino's portraits of Eleonora of Toledo, whether alone or with her child, define the Medici image: immaculate clothing, the exact hand gesture, jewelry rendered like miniatures within a painting. These sitters are presented as perfect public figures, their private vulnerabilities sublimated into a surface of hieratic calm. Children in his portraits, stiff, doll-like, astonishingly formal, become tokens of dynastic continuity. Through these images, Bronzino helped install a visual protocol for power. To be painted by him was to enter a specific kind of permanence. Alongside court portraits, Bronzino painted allegories that remain intriguingly ambiguous. The most famous, often titled An Allegory with Venus and Cupid or Venus, Cupid, Folly, and Time, is at once erotic and unsettling. A coiled composition of flesh, a boyish Cupid kissing Venus, a grotesque figure in the corner, and a time figure pulling back a curtain create a scene packed with symbolic contradictions. Is it a moral warning, a celebration of desire, a courtly joke, or all three? Scholars still dispute the iconography, which is part of the painting's charm. Popular culture even seized on a tiny visual detail. A disembodied foot from the composition found its way into Monty Python's iconography, underlining how Bronzino's images have traveled from Renaissance courts to modern satire. Although Bronzino's reputation leans toward portraits and myth, his religious work shows another facet: spiritual stillness deployed with classical balance. The Panciatichi Holy Family, an altarpiece, and several versions of the Pietà and Deposition reveal a solemnity that contrasts with the racy allegories. Here he composes figures with statuesque dignity. Faces are serene, sometimes mournful, but always stylized to emphasize form over anecdote. The result is a sacred calm that suits churches and private chapels of Florence's elite. These paintings also let Bronzino demonstrate compositional skill at larger scale, shaping groupings and gestures that read well from a distance while revealing exquisite details on close inspection. Bronzino ran a busy workshop, and many paintings attributed to him are products of collaborative practice. Students and assistants painted sleeves, backgrounds, and even whole versions of popular portraits for patrons across Europe. This workshop model explains why so many near duplicates and variants exist. The market wanted Eleonora, Cosimo, Lucrezia Panciatichi, and Bronzino's studio obliged. Look closely at pendant portraits such as Bartolomeo and Lucrezia Panciatichi. Matching poses, mirrored compositions, complementary gestures. In details, we can spot the master's hand: the face, the tilt of the head, the varnished finish. Assistants often executed fabrics and secondary figures. These collaborative dynamics allowed Bronzino's style to proliferate and made his visual language a currency of taste. Bronzino's influence extended through pupils like Alessandro Allori and beyond, shaping late Renaissance portraiture and court imagery across Italy. In the 17th and 18th centuries, his cool formality was sometimes criticized as mannered. Later art historians reappraised his craft, praising the virtuosity beneath the reserve. Curious details pepper his oeuvre. Jewels painted so precisely they almost cast reflections. Children posed with hands too delicate for play. Mythological scenes that invite more questions than answers. Bronzino was also a poet, writing sometimes barbed verses in the Medici circle, which hints at an intellectual life behind the portraits. Today, his works are divided among the Uffizi, the National Gallery, the Frick, and other major collections, still prompting debates about attribution and intent. Bronzino remains a study in controlled brilliance, a master who traded in polish and precision, turning paint into courtly armor. His portraits are rehearsed performances of status. His allegories are riddles wrapped in sumptuous surfaces. His religious pieces offer a cool, contemplative beauty. To stand before a Bronzino is to be reminded that art can be both a statement of power and a vehicle for mystery. If you take one thing away, let it be this. Bronzino teaches us that meaning in art is often layered, visible in the sheen of a sleeve, the turn of a wrist, and the spaces that a painter leaves for the eye to roam. Explore his portraits, read the allegories, and notice the hands, and you'll begin to hear the subtle rhetoric of a court painter who left an unforgettable, if enigmatic, mark on Renaissance art.